Mrs. Abiola Awoshika, a professor of education, is adamant in her submission that attention must be paid to early childhood education because the essential knowledge not imparted at that stage is very hard to instill later on.
When at the early childhood development stage, we do not harness their intelligence, we do not actually use what nature has already put in them, which is their brains develop to its almost full capacity between ages 2 and 5, maybe 7, depending on the child. That is the time when we're supposed to get those children and capture them and pour everything that they need to know and learn into them. There's a poem that says, starts with, "Everything I need to know in life, I learned in kindergarten." So when they don't learn those things in kindergarten, it becomes a slippery slope. So when we lose them that early, it's very difficult to get them back again. And that is why you would find secondary school students who can't write, who can't read, university graduates who can't write, who can't read. It's not all about 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, you can write and I can read. It's also about home training. It's about how your parents talk to you. You have conversations.
Based on the conviction that no child is untrainable, the professor categorizes them into visual, auditory, and kinetic learners, insisting that provision must be made for all types of children to learn at their pace.
The child who is a little slow in a teacher's class today in Nigeria, they'll probably think, she's stupid. They do not realize that she probably learns at a slower pace. It takes her a little while to get it, but once she gets it, it's permanent. And she probably could even use that content more actively than your average, the average student in that class. But we have not trained our teachers to recognize those things. We just lump all the children in one class. The American system, they have special ed teachers. I'm sure we have special ed teachers in Nigeria too, but even the regular teachers are not equipped, let alone the special education teacher. Because when you have a child who is a little slow, they run 2 tracks. They spend a little time with the special ed teacher who is helping to bring them up to speed with the rest of the class. We have to redesign our curriculum. People with disabilities in mind. Students who learn slower in mind.
There has been much debate about the merits of instruction in indigenous dialects, as well as which of the 3 major languages will be adopted as lingua franca if Nigerians decide in its favor. In Mr. Ashiru's view, the concept is desirable and not as complex as it seems.
The national policy on education stipulates that, to a very large extent, pre-primary and indeed primary education should be conducted in indigenous language. And researchers have shown that children that are taught in that manner do perform brilliantly, excellently well than those who are trained to think in a foreign language. Who says that you must speak English when you get to international fora? The Chinese, when they get to United Nations, they don't speak English. They don't speak French. The French don't speak English, even though they know how to do so. If we are truly serious, researchers have shown that children between age 0 and 5 can speak as many as 5 languages. So nothing says that in Nigeria, children cannot speak at least the 3 major languages. And then by the time they leave primary, secondary school, they can then begin to speak any other language they choose to.
But the more immediate problem is how to get the child to learn. According to these experts, as much as lies within the power of the system, no child should be left behind in the learning experience, because once grasped, the principles stay.
Put the child at the center and think about the future and ask yourself, what does this child need to get to that future? So when we define what that child needs, then we need to now come and ask that question, what curriculum will get him there? After we define the curriculum, then what kind of teachers should get him there? That's what should now determine the kind of people we should bring to the teaching profession. Whether it's going to be through people that come through education, go to college of education, study education in universities, or whether it's people that study other professions and it creates opportunity for them to convert, like you have a postgraduate diploma programs, you have to take that decision. And whatever we do, the regular training of teachers is non-compromisable. Every school must have a set of inspectors. They go there, they assess the school, they put the result on the internet. That's what the UK government has done with Ofsted. They put the result there. And at the end of the year, there's a league table of the best school per local government. Every parent sees it. What then happens? If I know my child is here, but this is the best school, I take my child there.
One of the fallouts of competition and the falling education standard is that parents enroll their wards for extra coaching at the expense of the children's social life.
Children need to play, children need to be children. Keeping them studying from January to December wouldn't make them the fantastic people. I'll tell you a story. Last year, I attended a seminar. The facilitator was the first indigenous managing director of Mobile. And he told us that when he started off, he employed first-class graduates. By the end of the year, out of the 7 first-class graduates he had sacked 5. Why? They had no soft skills. They could not interact with people. They couldn't stand people who were not as intelligent as they are. And the company isn't looking at people who are so intelligent. The company are looking for leaders, for people who are emotionally intelligent, for people who can interact with people and work as a team. That's what the company is looking. When we do this to our children, we're functioning them in a way that all they know is that they have to study, they have to make good grades, and they have to be on top of everything. And before you know it, the children have a complex, they have an attitude, and they can't interact.
More schooling does not lead to more learning. So one challenge which seems to be struggling, and it's because of the fact that we don't have an effective educational curriculum. It doesn't define how much time a child needs. There are countries in the world that they're already thinking about turning their school days to 4 days a week, because they realize that there's no comparative advantage of the 5th day. I mean, children learn by playing. I mean, if you remember several songs you learned when you were playing, or when it was raining those days, they tell you you should not go to the rain, and they teach you a song, and then you occasionally run to rain and you sing that song and all of that. It's part of learning. One of the things that we parents have also not done right is that we have put ourselves in a state of fear. So we fear that these children will not do well. So let's get him a music teacher. So let's get him a French teacher. So let's get him a math teacher. And maybe, let's assume we could measure learning. Maybe the child was at 65. All this additional learning maybe gets the child to a 68.
Apart from taking heed to the moral content of the curriculum, other suggestions for a better standard of education are reducing class sizes for attention to detail and more child-centered education. In the absence of manpower to achieve that, some people have suggested engaging the community by getting parents, especially mothers, to give some time up for voluntary service in the non-teaching areas of classwork. The use of technology is also known to make lighter work of teaching and grading scripts. That's all on Big Story this week. Thanks for watching and join us again next time. I am Mary Alale Yusuf.